Welcome to the Lux Files, a podcast for occultists about occultists. I'm your host, Sean, and I hope you enjoy this episode. Be sure to subscribe to the Lux Files wherever you get your podcasts to stay up to date on all the new episodes. Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 23 of the Lux Files. I am here today with author, playwright, storyteller, druid, Gail Nyoka. Hello, Gail. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. And how about you, Sean?
I'm fantastic. I'm so glad you're here. I miss you so much.
Oh, I miss you too. We need to get together again.
It's been way. Yeah, well, that's your fault. That's not my fault. You moved to another country.
Yeah, because I'm the one who moves all around.
Yeah, you moved to another country and now you're in Canada, but on the complete opposite side of the country. So blame yourself.
Yeah.
Oh, we could also blame COVID too, because I mean, I haven't seen Phil or Cindy now since I think 2018, because 2018 I was going to go down. That was going to be year 3 for Occulticon, so I was planning to go down. That was September of 2019, and then Occulticon got canceled, unrelated to COVID, of course, because this was September of 2019.
Yeah.
And then COVID hit, so I mean everything got canceled. So I haven't even seen them since 2000, and it was the summer of 2018. So it's been a long time.
Yeah.
And
so
sorry.
Yeah, are you making use of your traveling caravan, or has that been all canceled?
It's funny that you mentioned that, because I was just going to go get into that, because I had ordered it. So no one knows this because I haven't talked about the caravan on my podcast, but I met a woman. Well, I came across her website online, and it just so happens, like, she lives in Fletcher. Her name's Daphne, and her company is Daphne's Caravans. And it just so happens she lives in Flesherton, Ontario, which is a half an hour drive north of Mount Forest, which is where Phil and Cindy live near, and where I stay when I go to Occulticon. And I came across her website literally like 2 weeks before going down to Occulticon in the summer of 2018. So I had called her, and we arranged for me to go up to her place in Flesherton. I think it was before Occulticon started. And, like, the stars were in alignment, because she makes these handmade, like, she builds them out of wood and trailer bases, these Vardo style caravans. And at that point, I was trying to figure out a way. I was enjoying Occulticon so much, but with me living in Thunder Bay, like, it's an 18-hour drive to get to Southern Ontario.
Wow.
Yeah. So, it's, and at that time I had a little sports car, which gave me enough room to, like, for all of my products and my vendor tent and all of that, but not enough room for camping gear. Not like I really want to do tent camping at a festival. So I'm racking my brains, like, what are all my options of what I can buy so that I can do more festivals, because, there's plenty of other festivals that I'd like to attend that I don't have friends nearby that I could crash at their houses. So I came across this woman's website, and she builds them to your specifications. So I ended up ordering a caravan from her, and customized to what I need, like a sleeping bunk, storage underneath, and then room for shelves and display units for all my products. So and it's so great. So this was 2019, the fall of 2019. Paid my money, was like $5,000, and
not too bad a price when you
consider.
No,
not at all. So she found a trailer base because I wanted a 10-foot by 10-foot by 4-foot or 6. I can't remember how wide it is, but like because it's like Bardo style where there's the base and then it comes out and then up, it's wider than the actual trailer base. So the dimensions ended up being like 10-foot by 7-foot. And you know, I'm planning for Occulticon, which, like I said, ended up getting canceled. So I mean, I got like a electric cooler and a electric battery pack, so I can, you know, just everything ready to go. And Occulticon got canceled. Then COVID came around, and then I told this story that I'm about to relate already on my podcast a couple of times. So I'll kind of abbreviate a bit. There's these people that organize Wiccan Fest and Harvest Fest, and they were two events. Because I was planning, like, I'll do Occulticon, Wiccan Fest, Harvest Fest, and Kaleidoscope. That's 4 trips a year. Like, that's a lot of driving. Like I said, it's an 8 drive both ways, each way. But, you know, get my money's worth and do like 4 events a year. So Occulticon gets canceled. Like, Occulticon doesn't exist anymore. And then Wiccan Fest in 2020, spring 2020, goes virtual. And so I attended, and it was great. And 2 days. And the workshop or lecture, presentation, whatever, that I was really looking forward to was the last one on day 2. And the guy, and we're like only 5 minutes into the workshop, and he's like, blah, 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 blah. Oh, and all of you faggots, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like,
wow.
You know, when he has an accent, an English accent, and he was facing like to the side. When he said it. So I'm like, did I hear that, or am I misinterpreting like what he said because of his accent or whatever? So I didn't want to make a big scene, and really I should have, because I just should have, because you know, it's me and loudmouth. But anyways, I'm like, I'm not going to make a scene because I don't want to wreck things for everybody, just in case. So I log out and I re-listen. I'm like, sure enough, he said it. So I contacted the organizers, and they did the whole like white straight person cut and paste. Oh, we have 0 tolerance. Oh, safe space, blah, 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 blah. Like that, you know, that canned response that white straight people, you know, have in a file marked, you know, answers to problem makers. Oh, we're gonna reach out to the presenter, blah, 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 blah. We'll let you know. Well, 6 months later, not a word from them.
Wow.
So 6 months later,
that doesn't surprise me.
No, that exactly. And our communication has had with the organizers and myself had always been through Instagram, because like I contacted them. I'm like, hey, I want to get this caravan made. Here are the dimensions, blah, blah, blah. Would you allow it? You know, space considerations for vendors. They're like, oh my God, that would be so amazing. So we've already had prior communication to this. So 6 months later, they send me a message on Instagram. They're like, oh, follow our new Wiccan Fest Instagram account. So I respond back. I'm like, really? Like, I contact you guys about one of your presenters using a derogatory term for gay men, and you don't respond for 6 months. But when you do contact me, it's to promote your new social media account. They're like, oh, we're so sorry you didn't get our message. I'm like, well, I didn't get your message because there is no message. You and I can both see the same, thread of messages we've sent each other. You did not respond. Oh, blah, 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 blah. They're trying to justify their actions, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, basically, I was like, yeah, fuck you. So, so now I'm down 3 festivals. All I have left is Kaleidoscope. I mean, there's a few more down there, but everyone, when I was down at Occulticon, they're telling me like which ones I should attend and which ones don't bother, like from a vendor's perspective. Yeah. Like there's some that like you'll just be wasting your time. So fast forward to last week, and months ago, Daphne's like, oh, blah, 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 you know, and I'm like, well, I can go down and pick it up, you know, it's just I have no use for it at this point, you know, with COVID. She's like, oh, I have the space to store it, it's no big deal. And then last week she's like, oh, you know what, like, you know, who knows when these festivals are gonna happen again. She goes, you know, like I can sell it if you want me to sell it. And I responded back, I'm like, you know what, I think that's the best. Yeah. So she's gonna sell it and I'll just get my money back. And that, you know, it is what it is. It is. Yeah. But I mean, for anyone that's interested, not necessarily in a caravan, because who knows where you are in the world, but just to see like what she makes, Google Daphne's Caravans. And I think the website's like daphnescaravans.com or something. And they're amazing. Like some of them are very simple. Some of them are very like ornate and stained glass windows. And they're amazing. She's amazing. And no, I mean, $5,000 for something like that was nothing. You know what I mean? Yeah. So she had a client that got like a 14-footer made or a 12-footer made, something like that. And I can't remember the price. She told me how much she charged him and he paid it, blah, 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 blah. And he's like, and he said to her, like, I would have paid double the price.
Wow. Yeah.
Like, I think her prices are too low, but I mean, you know, it worked for her. So, you know.
Well, with the price of wood going up so much over the past year, I'm thinking, she's going to have to raise those prices.
It's possible. It's possible. And like, I mean, she's an older lady, so I don't know how much of this is necessary income and how much is, you know, just like passion. You know what I mean? Where she can do it, you know, where, you know, she's getting paid for her time, but it's not like, oh, I have bills to pay type thing. I don't know. So it's hard to say. So it's possible that, you know, with wood prices being so high now that you know, someone will jump at my caravan for $5,000 because it would be more to build at this point. Who knows? But enough about me. We're not here for me. I mean, I can talk to myself for hours, but none of my listeners are interested in me. They're here for you.
I'm sure they are.
So, well, of course they love me. So I always begin right at the beginning. One of my most things that I'm most curious about with all of my guests on the podcast is that one moment or series of events that set each guest on their like magical spiritual path. So I always like to begin there, and then the conversation goes where the conversation goes. So how about we start there?
Okay. I wouldn't say there was any one event, but I remember being we grew up in London, but in the summer times, we would go to Kent because I had an uncle and aunt and cousins who lived in Kent in the country. And it was always my favorite time of the year to go down to the country and just be in nature. And there's a woods that my uncle would sometimes take us to, and I just used to love being in those woods. So I think I had those kind of druidic passions right from the very beginning. Right. And but I didn't kind of know what it was. It was nice being in the woods, you know.
Right.
And too bad I had to be in London and not have woods. though we did have a very big park next door to us. It was Crystal Palace Park.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we'd go there when we could. But my mother didn't like us to go places without adult supervision. So,
Right.
so we couldn't even spend a whole lot of time in the park, but I did like it there.
Yeah.
And so, and that was kind of the only thing until I hit my 20s and I started to think, oh, witchcraft looks really interesting. But at that time, it was about 1970. And it was just before anything real, what I call real, started to be available.
Right.
So anything that was available in books, I thought, this isn't right. It's not right. You know, it can't be what witchcraft really is, because it would be stupid stuff.
Was it like the I don't even know how to describe it. Like not Wicca, not like, you know, pagan witchcraft, but more of the kind of like you know, sensationalist kind of black mat. Yeah, okay.
Yeah. And there wasn't even anything that I found on the Golden Dawn. I didn't know about the Golden Dawn till much later, and they've been around. But I suppose in those days, they didn't have the esoteric bookstores that you have now. The most I could find was a pack of tarot cards. It was the Aquarian deck.
Okay, yeah.
So I had that deck for a long time. And so, yeah, I just didn't know where to go until.
But you lived in London, so you had Treadwell's, you had Atlantis Bookshop.
Yeah, but I wasn't in London then. I had already moved to Canada.
Oh, okay. So how old were you when you moved to Canada?
I was 17.
Okay. So you went from London right to Toronto.
No, actually, I went from London to South Wales.
Okay.
Yeah, so I was about 15 when I left London, a couple of years in South Wales, and then to Canada.
Okay.
And actually, I always say that the bad child was sent to the colonies. And it's kind of true.
That's funny. So you were the black sheep of the family. Were you the troublemaker?
Or maybe I was the white sheep of the family.
There you go.
And I actually wasn't a troublemaker, but I just wasn't. You know, I liked music and concerts and teenage stuff. You know, which and my mother was very, very conservative, so she thought I was, you know, just wild, and I really was not.
That's funny. Now, why did you move to Wales first? What was there? Was there anything specific in Wales for you to go to?
My mother's job. She worked in the passport office, which had always been in London.
Okay.
And then at that point, they decided that they wanted to decentralize and have offices around the country. So that's why we ended up in Wales.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah,
what did you think of Wales?
At the time, I was kind of a London brat and thought, oh, I want to go back to London now. You know, that teenage time was not particularly good time to move. But I found that I had a really good friend in Wales, and I kind of had a second family there because her dad was really a great man, and his name was Albert Hobbs. And I was always at their place, and they'd take me on holiday with them.
Nice.
Yeah, so that was really, really nice to have that second family, and have the dad Hobbs there since I'd had no father actually all my life. So
right.
yeah.
Interesting.
So
You're kind of in the in BC, Canada here. You're kind of in the Wales of Canada because you're
yeah,
back in the mountains.
yeah. Except we were in Newport,
Mm.
which is not that mountainous, really. You'd have to go more north to get the real mountains and things.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Nice. Okay, so you moved to Toronto. How old were
yeah.
you?
I was 17 when I went to Toronto.
Okay. Okay.
Because I had actually been thinking about going back to London to live. And my mother was so horrified. She cooked up this plan with my aunt. And then they said, "Oh, wouldn't you like to try Canada?" And I thought, "Oh, this will be a nice adventure. Maybe I'll go to Canada." and But the whole idea was that my aunt to kind of keep me in check and not allow me any freedom. so and I didn't come thinking I would stay, but I just did. So yeah.
So what did you think of Toronto compared to London?
Oh, that was 1970.
Mhm.
And Toronto was such a one-horse town back in those days. It really was, I thought. And I was expecting it to be more like London and was quite disappointed. Yeah, in those days, lots of things were closed on Sundays, and it was just wasn't the fashion capital I thought it would be.
Right, right.
But when I got to Montreal, I really liked Montreal. That had a lot more life than Toronto.
Yeah.
Now Toronto has improved a whole lot since then, and now Toronto is a lot of fun. But
Oh, for sure. Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, I
yeah.
was going to ask you if, like, at that time, if you went to Montreal at all, because, just with you saying, like, oh, it's a one-horse town, things are closed on Sunday, it's not the fashion capital. I thought it would be like, I wonder if she went to Montreal at that time, because
Yeah, yeah.
it's a big difference.
Yeah, there was a big difference.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
Montreal's fantastic. Oh,
yeah.
so great.
And that was the fashion capital I wanted.
Yeah, for sure.
And the restaurants and the music and yeah. And I had a great aunt who lived there, and she was this amazing old lady. She really was. I just loved her. And so I'd go and stay with her.
Nice,
Yeah.
nice. So back then, I'm trying to think. Yeah, there wouldn't have, I don't think there would have been anything in Toronto, pagan magic
No.
wise, because the Wiccan Church of Canada didn't form until I think 78 or 79 or something like
Ah,
that.
yeah. I don't know when it formed, but it could have been. Yeah.
Or I shouldn't, oh, I can't remember now. Like my cousin Susan had been a member of the Wiccan Church of Canada. Yeah, no, it must have been around 78, 79 because my cousin Susan joined the Wiccan Church of Canada around the time that it formed. Because so they had their temple and their metaphysical shop, which was called the occult shop.
Mm-hmm.
Up until just a couple of years ago, they were approached by developers that wanted, I mean, their temple was like prime real estate
Yeah. Yeah.
at this point a couple of years ago. And they were approached by developers to, sell the building so they can put up a high-rise condo. And they're like, nope, nope, nope. So no sooner do they turn down the developers that the fire marshals and bylaw officers are crawling all over the
Yeah.
building. Oh,
Mm-hmm.
fire code this, regulations that, blah, 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 blah,
Yeah.
blah, blah. If you want to keep being in this building, it's going to cost you, $500,000 or whatever it would be. They're like, yeah,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
that. So they sold up and yeah,
Mm-hmm.
They still exist. They just they had to move locations. But yeah, that would have been, I'm sure it was 78 or 79 around there that they started. And I don't know when the Wicca shop opened up. I know it was there in the 90s, around the beaches on Queen Street East, beaches neighborhood. Because I remember being there in the 90s. It was like mid 90s. But yeah, prior to that, I honestly couldn't say, really.
Yeah. So yeah, and then me being the vagabond that I am, I went to Ottawa for university, and then and that was actually the time I really started looking, when I was at university and couldn't find anything other than my Aquarian tarot deck.
Right.
Yeah.
And a couple of dodgy books.
Yeah. Yeah. Totally useless books.
Yeah. I'm kind of thinking like, what's her name? Catherine Best, her book of magic and witchcraft, or witchcraft and magic. And that was one of the first books that I bought. And I'm glad I bought better books afterwards, because if I thought that's all that magic was, like that kind of, you know, those dodgy, questionable spells, I might be a different person today. But there was a lot of those in the 70s, a lot of those like dodgier.
Yeah.
So you know, how did you then, you know, get on, you know, your like let's say proper path, magic?
Yeah. I think it was just about the 80s. I thought, you know, I really need to find this spiritual path that I want. And by that time, there was stuff around. I think I managed to pick up a spiral dance at a garage sale.
Nice.
And I'd moved from the country back to Toronto again. And I had two young children at that point. And the occult shop was not what was it called? There was this big store, the Omega Center was in Toronto at that time, in the Yorkville area.
Right. Yep. Okay.
Yeah. And so there was stuff happening, and I went to a workshop at the Omega Center, and there was a woman who was running these women's spirituality classes. And I was really impressed by her workshop, which she did around Samhain. Okay. And so that was such a strong time of year, and you really felt all these energies. So then I joined her weekend workshop. And some of us from that weekend workshop got together and formed a little group, which lasted maybe a year or so. But it was an interesting group, and I hadn't really found the proper path at that point, but I liked the women's spirituality group. And that is when Brige came, and I thought, oh, this is interesting. Here's this Celtic goddess who's come into my mind. But I think I like ancient Egypt, so I'm going to leave that alone. And so then I went looking and found Fellowship of Isis, which is really good. I did the priestess course at Crossroads Lyceum. They had this male course. I think they're still going strong. It might not be the same as it was before, but they are. And which was very eclectic. It wasn't quite ancient Egyptian. They tend to not focus on any one pantheon. But I was encouraged to search out and see, and then Brige coming back, and I thought, okay, time to do this. And so after I'd done my priestess training with FOI, I started looking into Druidry and found OBOD. And yeah, that ended up being my home.
Okay. So I interviewed a couple weeks ago a high priest in the, or should I call him a high priest or a priest? I can't remember. He's ordained in the Fellowship of Isis. He got a lot of his training at the Isis Oasis out in California.
Yeah.
Which another friend of mine spent 14 months there prior to COVID teaching. So just as an aside, that's just, interesting. So at the time that you did your priestess training, did they not have their Druid course?
They did. They had what do they call it? There's a Druid strain which is separate. I think it was the Druid Order of Dana, which is separate from what I was doing. So
But why did you not go that route, since you're already with the Fellowship of Isis, and go to OBOD instead? Just out of curiosity.
I think OBOD's approach really, I liked it. I liked the whole. I think the Fellowship of Isis Druid course was, or Druid, what do you call it? Grove, was more focused on the intuitive, which is fine. Working with that, or it was at the time when I was looking at it. And I found OBOD with its emphasis on more personal development, more creativity. It just appealed to me more. So that's why I went with OBOD. Yeah.
Interesting. And this was still like in the 80s?
Yeah, that was, hang on. I was Fellowship of Isis for about quite a while before I joined OBOD. And I can't try to remember exactly when it was. But I know I've been a member of OBOD for over 20 years now. So yeah, so it had to have been in the late, maybe it was just before 2000. So that would have been the 90s then, wouldn't it?
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I'm trying to think. Well, yeah, no, that would make sense if that it would have been the 90s, because when we first met, you were, well, okay, now also too, like the one thing to keep in mind, I think a lot of people in the neo-pagan community are so used to like the year and a day training. Like with OBOD, we have the Bardic grade, then we move to the Ovate grade, and then the Druid grade, and set up that you can do it in a year, but you don't have to. Like, you can go as long as you want. So when we first met, you were in the Druid grade, but you hadn't completed it. You had been in the Druid grade for ages at that point.
Yeah, it took me 4 years to complete the Druid grade, actually.
Yeah. Which again is fine. Like, it's not like it's not like OBOD has it set up where it's timed or
no.
You get a knock on the door, they're like, what's going on? You know what I mean? It's not set up like that. I mean, it's a organization, it's an order, but it's not. Yeah, it's not set up.
No, yeah,
like, with such a hard structure or anything like that. I had a question I was gonna ask you. I'm sure I'll remember it, but yeah, I can't remember what I was. Oh, so this was the 90s. Like, and of course you did a correspondence course, which was the mail course, because they didn't have the CDs back then. And I think actually now they also have the course online as an
they do. They have the Bardic course online. I don't think they have the others online yet.
Okay. And see, they don't change the course all that much. So I'm curious, because when I first got my intro packet, and that would have been the mid 2000s. I would think that would have been around 2004, 2005. You know, you can request the intro packet, which is like the first 4 gores.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I finally joined in 2006, they had revamped the course a bit. So the course I took and the course you took has differences.
Yes.
I don't know how different they are, but I know they are different because the course was revised.
Yeah, the course was revised. I don't know if you have the new revision because it's the new course is actually quite different. The approach is different than the one I did.
How you're saying new revised, like how like
was yours the one with based on the Taliesin story?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. So that's the one you did. Yeah. Whereas mine was not.
Okay.
Yeah.
I actually, you know, that the Tale of Taliesin, that's in the Bardic Grade material, really resonated with me so deeply that you know, it's something, it's a story that I think about a lot, like I'll just reflect on a lot. And when I first started the podcast, what I wanted to do was I wanted to have 1 interview a week and 1 extra week. I would, you know, recite some folklore, magical battles between, like real magical battles between occultists, you know, stuff like that. And I'm just so busy with my business that I'm like, I don't have the time for this. But my first thing that I recorded for the podcast was the Tale of Taliesin, because it really it's really foundational to my whole approach to my spirituality, and it resonates so much with my work and training through like the Golden Dawn system as well. So I actually recorded that for the podcast. So yeah, so that was mine. I don't know if they've revised it since, because like I said, I joined OBOD in 2006. I can't believe, like, that was 15 years ago. Like, I've been
wow,
for 15 years. Like, that's crazy. It's really, really, really insane.
Yeah, we're getting old.
Getting old, absolutely. So
yeah, the hair's gone gray.
Yeah. Yeah, you can see. So you joined OBOD. Did you kind of, I don't want to say breeze through, but did you go through the Bardic grade and the OBOD grade relatively quickly, and then sat in Druid grade? Or?
I went through the Bardic grade in a year because a lot of it was just a different approach to stuff I'd already done.
Yeah.
The OVATE grade took me 2 years because there was some practical stuff that needed doing in that you know, you needed to get out and actually do it. So yeah, and you do in the Bardic grade as well. It's just that I had already done a lot of the Bardic stuff.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the Bardic grade is really, like, you can look at the Bardic grade and sort of overlay it over this tradition's first year training, that tradition, you know what I mean? Because, you know, so many different orders, traditions, organizations, what have you, that offer, you know, magical, spiritual initiations and training and coursework and whatnot. You know, the elements are so foundational to your personal development, your transformation, like your alchemy. that, like, you look at the Golden Dawn, like the outer order grades, and you look at the Bardic grade coursework, and you see the similarities there. How you work through the elements are different. Like,
Yes, yeah.
like OBOD, we did earth, water, air, fire, so the order in which you work through the elements can be different, but yeah, they're all pretty similar.
There's a slightly different approach and different ways of doing things, and it's good to go into, if you're doing a new course, just to go into that new course with the beginner's mind, as they say.
Exactly. Yeah. I always, whenever I try something new, but that I have experience in, I always, because I want to get the most, and especially if I'm spending money on something, I want my money's worth. So I always go into something with a beginner's mind. Like, what about X that I already know, but that you can teach me that I don't know? If you go through life thinking like, oh, well, I know everything about X, well, guess what? I have news for you. You don't.
No.
You don't. Like, you hear so many people, in the occult community, talking about being lifelong students and the importance of that mentality. And it's true. It's true. You don't stop learning. You don't stop growing.
No.
So, yeah. So, the Bardic grade, in that sense, it's pretty easy for a lot of people, because it was work that even I went through, although I had a spontaneous initiation halfway through the Bardic grade. I think I was actually in water at that time, that just completely changed who I am.
Wow.
Completely. And like, you guys knew me at that point, but I kept what was going on pretty much on the down low, because it's just I just completely, I didn't have like any sort of any major, it wasn't like a major crisis or anything. It's not like, my life was falling apart as a result, but and I remember the moment. I remember when it happened, like it was yesterday. And the feeling, I always talk about it, like I just shattered into 1,000 pieces. And I had to go through every single piece and be like, do I want this piece? Yes. Do I want this piece? No. And discard it. And that was, there's definitely a pre that moment Sean and a post that moment Sean that are two such completely different people. That if that never happened, it could have happened at a further point in my life, but if that never happened, that instance, and I call it like a spontaneous initiation, because that's really what it was. It wasn't during a ritual or anything, a ritual initiation. I would just be such a completely different person. Completely different. Yeah. That would have been, I think that would have been 2007 or late in 2006. I don't know. I can't remember. It was a couple of years after I met you guys, because it took me a while to finally join OBOD after meeting you guys a year or two or something like that.
Yeah.
It was a while.
Yeah. But taking these courses can really be transformative.
Yeah. There's a potential for a bit of danger with this kind of work, because things that need to happen can happen, like these transformative experiences, but they can be really life altering in a more challenging way. I don't want to say dangerous, in a more challenging way, like, you know, where your whole life can fall apart, you know, your job, your career, everything, you know, and it's scary, especially if you lose everything, you lose your job, friends,
relationships,
everything, and you know, you have to pick up the pieces and start again and rebuild your entire life. And it, you know, that's part of some people's experiences. Like, it's not, I can see people that don't understand magic saying, oh, well, that proves that what you're doing is black magic, because nothing good would cause you to lose your job. And I mean, we know that's not true.
Yeah, we do. And we know that those are you have to break down to build up what you need to be, who you need to be.
I didn't have that dramatic moment where, I mean, my personality completely crumbled, but I was still, you know, able to maintain my life, my job. And, you know, I was taking the natural healthcare practitioners certification course at that time. I was able to maintain all of that. But in a way, I kind of wish I had that complete breakdown of my entire life at that time, because I had a series of them in more of a smaller scale, where, like, I'm building up my career and I'm getting to the pinnacle, and then something happens that drops me down a few notches. I have to build up, you know. And it was just a series of those until I worked through, I'm just going to say this, until I self-initiated into the Golden Dawn. Now, I don't think you can self-initiate into the Golden Dawn, whereas like any Golden Dawn order would be like, oh, well, you're an adept, you don't have to go through our outer order training. My friend Frater RC, who joined the Golden Dawn in like the mid 90s, and he actually ran a temple, he thinks I self-initiated into the Golden Dawn current. I don't know, but that's, you know, that's not a topic to really for us to get into, because again, it's not why we're here. But when I did that, I use Chick and Tabitha Cicero's self-initiation into the Golden Dawn book, and and I stuck to it as much as possible, to the point where, like, you know, because I don't have temple officers for the rituals, I built all the wands as representatives for the temple. You know what I mean? So like I took it serious, and I went as hardcore as possible, up to what would be portal grade, and lost my job. And I was living in Texas at the time, so losing my job meant losing my work visa, which meant I had 14 days to leave the country, or else technically I'd be an alien. Blah, 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 blah. Back in Canada, oh my God, what am I going to do? Be like, you know what? Nothing. I'm done working. I don't need to work anymore. I was 34 years old. I'm done. I'm retired. I'm not going to work anymore. And then I started Lay Loken Zawin. And it didn't occur to me until a couple of years after starting my business. It was like, wait a minute. When I was in grade 10 entrepreneurship class, our big semester end project was to create a fictitious business. What was my business? Making beeswax candles, incense, and oils, which is what I'm doing now.
Yeah.
And I completely forgot about that until just a couple of years ago, years after I started Lelo Gonzalez.
Yeah.
So I realized that I was having those many life shattering, career shattering moments where I just get to the pinnacle and be knocked down a bit and back up and knocked down, because that's not what I was supposed to be doing. This was what I was supposed to be doing, you know? So I didn't, it didn't happen in a big way back then, which in a way would have been nice instead of doing it when I was living in a completely different country. You know, but you know, it is what it is. It is what it is.
Yeah.
You know,
and maybe, you know, there's the smaller, perhaps more gentle breakdowns are not too bad.
No, well, I mean, like the experiences that I had working in my previous career, I wouldn't give up for anything. If I started Lelo Gonzalez back in my mid-20s when I had this spontaneous initiation, I would never have moved to Texas. There would have been no reason for me to move to Texas then. And back then, I mean, the internet wasn't what it's like nowadays. I don't know, because all of my business is online. All of my distributors that carry my products discovered me online. So I don't know how viable the business even would have been, you know, back then anyway. So I guess I just had to live my life until the
right time came along.
The right time, and the universe is like, okay, you know, now this is viable. So we're going to completely destroy your life now. Yay.
Oh, Zana, can you wait a minute?
Do you need me to pause?
No, her mom's here.
Oh, okay. So so going back, so you joined OBOD.
And actually at the same time, I was also still, and I still do even to this day, work with some of the Egyptian deities.
Right.
But I work with them separately. They're a whole separate stream that I work with.
So do you, when you say separate, I'm actually curious about this, just to kind of compare with what I do. Like when I do my druid work, like it's, you know, I'm all in, very druidic. When I'm doing my Golden Dawn, it's my Golden Dawn, and it's very separate. And do you kind of function the same way, where like they're just absolutely completely separate? There's no blending. There's nothing like that.
No, they're completely separate. I have I work with Sekhmet a lot and Hathor, and they're just their own thing there. Yeah.
Now, is that your priestess training in the Fellowship of Isis, or
it came out of that, and choosing those two, or they chose me, came out of the Fellowship of Isis priestess training. But the work I've done since with the Kemetic Pantheon since then has been just things I found out on my own studies and things.
Right. And so is your work with them more Kemetic or more like neo-pagan?
It's Kemetic. It really is.
I kind of figured, just knowing you, more Kemetic as opposed to neo-pagan.
I even found that a lot of people who do work with the ancient Egyptian deities tend to work with some of the later stuff that when the Greeks came in, but I work with the earlier stuff, pre-Greeks.
You're right. Yeah. Which this might be jumping ahead in your life story a bit, but you actually wrote a book that
I did.
Yeah, that where you actually traveled to Egypt to do a lot of research for your book and whatnot. So being a chemeticist and a priestess in the Fellowship of Isis, that must have been an incredible experience to actually be able to be in the temples and whatnot.
Yeah, it really was. And I went by myself. I didn't want to join anybody else's trip because I needed to do my own research and my own thing there. And going by myself actually led me to some better experiences, I think, because sometimes they always had guards around the temples. This was way before the revolution, the Arab Spring Revolution. This was a few years before that. So the guards were always there, and but they'd say some of it was blocked off to tourists. Especially there was the temple at Karnak. They had a section blocked off to tourists, but because I was by myself, you know, they'd say, "Okay, come on in here," you know.
Yeah.
And another temple I was in, I was actually really annoyed that I couldn't be absolutely by myself, and this guard would be with me chatting away, and I'd be going, "Oh, please leave," and he wouldn't. I don't think they would allow anybody to be just by themselves. So I went into the what would have been the Holy of Holies, and I decided, okay, he's there, I'm just going to do my thing. And I knelt on the ground and I put my forehead to the ground, and he walked out of the room and he left me. And and then afterwards he said, "Oh, have you finished now?" And I said, "Yes." And so that was kind of unexpected.
Hi everyone, thank you for listening to the Lux Files. I'm not just the host of this podcast, I'm also the owner of Leylokenzawen. I make beeswax and scented spell candles, loose stick and liquid incense, anointing oils and bath salts. So once you're done listening to this episode, why don't you head on over to my website at www.leylokenzawen.com and check out my products. For your convenience, the link to the website is also in the show notes.
Yeah. But they I suppose they recognize some of the old stuff, you know.
Yeah. I think you know, we have like a stereotypical idea of what anyone in Islam would be like and how they would behave. So I can see a lot of people being like, "Oh, like that's incredible, blah 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 blah." But I mean, it's great. It's a great experience for you that, you know, the guard recognized what was going on and had the presence of mind to, you know, turn around and exit the Holy of Holies so you can have your moment. But I mean, I think they know the score. They have to. The guards that work at the temples, you know, as their job, they know the score. They're not stupid.
Yeah, they do. So it was very good, and so I was making all my notes and visiting the sites, and I wish I could have stayed longer. Actually, I think I would have done more if I'd stayed longer. That's the trouble with when you go places. There's always more to do and more to see.
Of course. Well, I mean, you know, a civilization that existed for how many thousands of years when you only have 2 weeks to take it all. Well, I can't remember how long you were gone for.
Yeah, I was gone for just over 2 weeks.
Right,
I think.
right. Yeah. 2 weeks just, you know, really doesn't quite cut it.
No.
Bethany Hughes did a series on ancient Egypt, and she I can't remember how many days, I think it was like a week or something, and every day was like a different episode, turned into a different episode for the series. But she stayed on this boat that traveled down the Nile as she went from like Cairo and ended up in Karnak. And Oh, just this wide, you know, the boat is wide and the decks and the canopies and oh, I mean, what a way to experience Egypt.
Yeah, yeah.
That was something.
Yeah. I took the train from Cairo down to Luxor.
Yeah.
And that was nice too. You look out the window and you see all the scenery and you think, wow, this hasn't changed in thousands of years, some of it.
Yeah.
If you're out of the cities, it's very old-timey.
Yeah.
You see people with their donkeys and they're beating their carpets by the river. And yeah.
What an amazing experience. What an amazing experience.
Yeah.
And then you turned all of that into a book.
I did. It's a young adult novel, and I called it Star's Reflection. And yeah, I think it's a good book.
Yeah.
Even if I say so myself.
You know, talk about the book a little bit, like about the storyline a little bit.
The storyline is I started in Toronto, and I actually based it in a house that I used to live in with my daughters. So the street and the house are the ones I lived on and in. And it's two friends who have this horrible teacher, and he's actually based on an actual teacher.
Why are you laughing?
But this teacher is from Egypt, and he is fighting with another group from Egypt for possession of a mirror. And through the mirror, these girls can see into the past in a temple. And because he's fighting with this other group, they manage to get hold of the mirror and then they start looking. And so the story goes into the Egyptian story, but comes back to the present time with what the girls are doing. And so it's, yeah, the temple is based on the temple of Hathor. And I tried to make it as authentic as possible. So I think, you know, without actually knowing exactly what they did there, I did a lot of research into the temple life and the way things were, the general life in ancient Egypt as well.
Yeah.
And I was at the Royal Ontario Museum. They have a nice library with all kinds of stuff. And the librarians, of course, are always very helpful. I say, oh, well, I'm looking for this and this and this.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. And so then I put out the book. Mm-hmm. And yeah, it got good reviews. I think the people who read it really liked it.
Yeah. And didn't you win some sort of award, or I can't remember. I mean, this is going back so long.
Not for that book. For an earlier book, it got nominated for, and this was one based on a folktale from Zimbabwe. It got nominated for quite a number of awards, including the Governor General's.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And I did win an award for a stage play. So I won the Chalmers Canadian Play Award, which doesn't exist anymore. No, it does not exist, which is a shame because it was a great award. Really was a boost for playwrights.
Yeah. When did that stop?
I think it stopped around 2001, actually.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, that's unfortunate.
It is, yeah. But I have my plaque saying I won this award, and it sits on my wall in my office.
Nice.
And I'm very proud of it.
Yeah. Nice. So you and I met, I think it was around 2004. because I joined the Fellowship of Isis. And I can't remember how it worked. If they gave me your contact information or if it was on the website. I can't remember. But you were basically my teacher in the Fellowship of Isis. And I remember really well you coming to my apartment one night for my initiation, which was lovely. And I can't remember how it came about. I think I would have mentioned at some point that I was interested in OBOD. And again, I can't remember how the conversation came about. I don't know if I was wanting more information about the FOI's Druid course, or I can't remember. But I remember specifically mentioning to you that I was interested in OBOD. And you were like, oh, I'm a member of OBOD. I'm Druid grade and I have a grove of other OBODs and we meet all the time for ritual. And it was Samhain was the first time I got together with you guys.
Yeah, Samhain's a really great time to have a ritual, isn't it?
Yeah,
it's my favorite.
Yeah. And that was the first time I did ritual with you guys. And I was a bit nervous because you and I were both living in Toronto, and Phil and Cindy had left. They moved from Guelph to outside of Mount Forest. And at that time, if you remember, the house that they bought had just the 8 acres. They hadn't bought the other 92 acres yet. Which is still, I mean, the 8 acres, it's plenty of space. And we went there, and I was nervous because, you know, I'd never met them. I barely knew you. And here I am, bags packed, to spend a weekend in a stranger's house. And they may or may not kill me. I don't know. You know, I may or may not be stuffed into a wicker man and I don't know. And so you and I went out there and we spent the weekend with them, and it was so incredible. And that lasted for 4 years. Like, I mean, I moved to Toronto in 2008, so that lasted 4 years. And God, those were amazing weekends. They really were.
Yes, they really were. Yeah.
Like, that property of theirs was so unique and so magical. It's their property is surrounded by farmland. It's farms north, south, east, and west. And this property is, oh, it's just, they have a forest and like a ravine and a swamp, and they have ponds in their back. It's just, if you're any strip of pagan, like, this is the piece of land that you want to own, you know. The Buddha bowl, which is behind the house, it's literally a bowl shape in the ground. Huge space, huge space, where we would do all the rituals. And then that one rise to the west of the Buddha bowl where they built the stone circle. Oh, it's just so incredible. Yes.
Well, I'm eventually, though it's going to take a while, planning to do something on land in BC here.
My friend Frater RC and I were talking about that just a couple of weeks ago. Talking about, like, him, you know, he spent, like I said, that 14 months teaching at Isis Oasis, and telling me about it, and you know, the setup and how it all works, and blah 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 blah. And I'm like, you know, we need something like that in Canada. Of course, the only place you could really pull off something like that in my opinion, would be BC. Because,
yeah.
you know, for it to really be, you know, like a viable thing, you'd want it to be, you know, active year round. And the only place in Canada where you could have, you know, something like that active year round is BC, because BC doesn't get winters like the rest of Canada. You know, it's
Well, yeah, it depends where you are, because
it depends
in
on
the
where
southern
you are.
interior we get a lot of snow.
He was telling me about what do they call it? Oh, the Sunshine Coast.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Would be a good place for something like that. And you know, we were talking about that. I'm like, you know, it might be a pipe dream, but it would be nice to. Well, of course, it would be nice to achieve it, but it would be a nice goal to aim towards.
Oh yes,
you know?
definitely.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. Who knows? I mean, you know, who knows? I'm still young. You never know what can happen.
Yes, in spite of the gray hair.
Yeah, in spite of the gray hair. Yeah. So we used to have a lot of fun those weekends out at
we did.
Cindy's, and you guys gave me my OBOD initiation out there. And well, of course I remember that because it was my initiation, and I remember it was horrible weather. It was raining, and it took forever for you guys to set things up, like a long time for you guys to set things up, because as it turns out, you guys had built a labyrinth of candles, and of course the candles were having a hard time staying lit because it was raining. And it was such a incredible like I've shared some photos of like remember that big wicker man, that huge wicker man that we built that one year?
Vaguely.
And we made his penis out of a corner of the top, and we hid sparklers in his penis. So one corner of the cob ignited, then the sparklers ignited, and his penis was exploding. That was one of the like mini like gathers where the Ottawa Sea Group came down.
Oh yes, yeah.
And they had that girl. She sang opera, and for her ice pod, we went out onto the road so we can see the stars, and she sang opera while we were looking at like the Milky Way and all the stars and everything. Do you remember that?
I do. Yeah.
So amazing.
It was amazing.
The big candle lit labyrinth. Because remember, like north of the Buddha Bowl, they had mowed another circle and did that big labyrinth of candles. And so like pictures like that I've shared online. It's like well, they're beautiful pictures, a lot of them. But it's like I wish everyone had these same experiences that I did, you know, in these moments. And the that Wicker Man dance, when you still had those silver masks on and you were dancing with the torches. John from the Ottawa Sea Group, I don't know if you remember, he filmed.
I do. Yeah.
So I actually have that on my my YouTube channel, that dance. And it's great because it's still like, I mean, it's dark out, but the sky's like dark blue. It's not quite black yet when we start. And by the time the Wicker Man's all like engulfed in flames, like there's no light. The sky's black, and the only light's coming from the Wicker Man, and we're all dancing around. And it was a good time.
Yeah, great times, really fun times.
Absolutely. I remember we did a full moon ritual in February because Imbolc and full moon coincided, and the snow was up to our knees. and we dancing around outside.
Yeah,
in the snow.
In true Druid fashion.
Yeah, like we did all of our rituals outside. Like even like winter solstice, Immel. But I mean, we had the benefit, you know, you try that here in the city. Sure, we have fire pits, but they're small little fire pits. You know, like those fires aren't putting out heat to fill up, you know, the space. Whereas out there, you know, we had the big bonfires. I mean, we're still bundled up. I mean, we had our multiple sweaters and coats and gloves and scarves and toques and boots. I mean, we were fully, you know, with the winter clothes, but the fact that we could have big bonfires made it bearable. Yeah.
And very magical too.
Yeah.
We have all the elements and the outdoors. Oh, we have a waving child here.
Yeah. Well, barely. We can only see like a corner of her head. Yeah, they were, you know, those were some of the best moments of my entire life.
Here, please.
All grandchildren. You're so great.
Yeah. Oh. And then there's the barking dog.
Yeah. It's all good. This is, you know, it's real life. This is real.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
Do you remember that house you lived in Guelph by a little river?
Yes, I do.
That old stone house by the river. Oh,
yeah.
So amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
I miss Southern. I would love to move back to Southern Ontario. There's, you know, I mean, when you talk about history and old buildings, I mean, obviously, you know, it doesn't compare to, you know, Europe, obviously. But up here, we just don't have that kind of history, you know? And like, yeah, just to be in Southern Ontario, a little town, an old house, space, nature.
Yeah.
It would be nice. I mean, we have space here. I mean, this is Northern Ontario. We're nothing but space here. But, you know, it doesn't take, you know, too much of an effort to be out in the middle of woods here. But it's not your space. Like, I'm talking about, like, your space, you know.
Yeah.
Having you know, a couple of acres. And, yeah, it's just, it's different. It's different down there. I miss it in a way. I was thinking about moving back there to Southern Ontario, but I don't know. I think if I was to move again, I think I would move out to BC.
Yeah, BC is a whole different atmosphere. It really is.
Yeah.
But I like it. I think it's my favorite.
Yeah. You just got to figure out how to do that, because you live, so I can't remember, was I in Texas when you moved to Ohio, or was I still in Canada?
I think you were in Texas at that point. I'm not sure. Yeah.
When did you move to Ohio? I can't remember. Oh, I was in Texas. Yeah, I was in Texas. Yeah. So now you just have to figure out how to live in two places at once.
Yeah, which is a bit tricky, because it's difficult to try and plan things, because one of the things I definitely want to do in BC here is run some workshops and gatherings. But if you're not here all the time, it's hard to make the connections and have them stick and build on them.
Yeah. One of us has got to win the lottery.
Yeah.
So we can just buy a big parcel of land out in BC and you know, build a temple of Isis and you know, stone circles and, you know.
Yeah, well, we have the land and it's got lots of stones. It's just that moving those stones is a job. So I think we'd have to hire people to move the stones for us. There's
after
a place,
winning the lottery, after winning the lottery, the name
no
of the
problem.
game is hiring people to do stuff for you. You
Yeah,
don't
yeah.
do stuff yourself anymore.
Yeah, there's a place in Pennsylvania, and it's called the Four Quarters, and they've actually built a stone circle with some pretty big stones. And what they do is they organize these work weekends, and people come and do all the work.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Nice, nice.
So I think I need to organize some work weekends.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, that would be nice. That would be nice. I was talking about Occulticon, which was a short-lived festival, and it was so incredible. Like the quality of the festival, the quality of all the presentations and workshops were top-notch. But it also helped where it was being held. It was being held at Wood Campground.
Yeah.
And there was like two sections to the camping area. Like there was like the public section where you could rent by the day or weekend or whatever, but it had the what they called the village, and that was the seasonal campers that had their trailers on their own lots, you know, and they paid their you know, their lot fee for the year. And one of the conditions of being one of the villagers is you had to make your lot, like your trailer, whatever, themey. Because again, myth.
Yes. Yeah.
So like one person, you know, like they parked their camper trailer and then built a wood facade and a tower, and it looked like with the crenellations and everything, like it looked like a castle wall, like a mini castle just made out of wood. But oh, it was such a magical, oh God, it was such a magical space. All of the buildings looked like they were like medieval, like Tudor style. There was a huge, I think it was like 100-foot diameter, roughly, stone circle, all these hidden groves. There was two ponds. The bigger pond actually had an island in the middle of it, and the water level would lower where you can actually walk out to the island, but it had a sword. It had a sword in the stone. You know, Arthurian legend. It had a recreation of Seahenge. It was such an incredible space. Year 2 of Occulticon, we had a voodoo priest sort of consecrate a voodoo temple like out in the woods, and oh my God, it was such like Occulticon itself, like I said, was just amazing, but it was also like the land that it was on was it was just absolutely incredible. But then Mythwood Campground closed down, and so did Occulticon. And you know, I think we need more of those magical spaces.
Yeah, we really do.
I mean, it's tough, I think, period, but it's so much tougher in Canada because, you know, we don't have the population like US. Like the US has 10 times the amount of people that we do.
Yeah.
And also too, like we have barriers here in Canada, like just practicality, you know, no one wants to drive across country in the middle of winter.
No.
It's not safe. It's not easy. You know, driving through Ontario, driving through the Canadian Shield in the middle of winter, if the highway, and you know, for anyone that doesn't know, like there's pretty much only one highway that connects Eastern Canada to Western Canada, and in the winter it can shut down a lot. just completely unsafe to drive on. And yeah, like driving through the Canadian Shield in the wintertime is madness because it's so hilly, sharp turns, you're on the edges of cliff, and it's just snowstorm, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
You know, like no one, like, yeah, you can fly, but I mean, you know, it's just, yeah, there's challenges. There's challenges creating magical spaces like that and making them viable, making them work here, you know, unfortunately.
Yeah, it is. And I think the West Coast is really the only place that it could work.
I agree. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, so one of us needs to manifest some lottery numbers.
Okay, yes, that's true. Okay, start working on some magic there.
Yeah. Get on it. You know, I'm the one. I've been taking a deep dive into Enochian magic, and
yeah,
but more like, well, I shouldn't say. When I say like I recently taking a deep dive into like more like deep purist Enochian as opposed to the Golden Dawn Enochian, which I'm used to, and it's pretty impressive results, which I kind of wasn't expecting, just because I'm so used to all the prep work, you know, the ritual build up, you know, and whatnot. And my first Enochian working in this like deep purist style, it was my cyber magic group, not my cyber magic group, but the cyber magic group that I'm part of. We were doing this, and I was like, okay, what am I going to ask for? I'm like, oh, you know what? I'm going to ask, you know, can you maybe give me a little boost in my business? And I'm like, oh, no. I'm not going to bother with that. I'm just going to focus on, you know, our main task. I'm not going to worry about any practical magic, anything like that for myself. And we're doing the invocations, and we finish up, everything's all good, blah, 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 blah. I go, you know, now we're logged off, blah, blah, blah. And I go check my email on my computer. There's an email from this woman from a distribution company out of Asia, China, basically saying, hey, we love your products. We'd like to be your distributor for China and Hong Kong.
Wow.
So yeah, so I got my fourth distributor, but it happened in the middle of this Enochian invocation when I'm like, oh, I should ask for a boost in my business. Oh, no, I'm not going to bother. So it was in my head. It was in my heart. And, you know, even though I didn't express that request, it was still, like I said, in my head and in my heart. And it certainly wasn't a greedy request. You know, it wasn't like, oh, you know, send me $50 million, or I want to, just like a humble, like, you know, little boost in business. And I got a whole new distributor out of it. So yeah, who knows? Maybe, you know, maybe we can manifest some lottery winners.
Yes.
And then we can
either that or a very rich investor.
Yeah. And then we can build the God, what would we even name it? Well, I mean, we'd have to name it after me somehow.
Oh, but, yeah. Well, I already have my name, which is the Druid's Grove.
Sean's Isis Oasis.
Oh.
I would never do that. Honestly, I would never do that. That would be so cheesy. And,
It would, wouldn't it?
well, no, it would be totally cheesy, and it wouldn't like. Yeah, no, no. That sounds too guru-ish, and it doesn't even sound like it. Just sounds cheesy. Like it's just like some like discount store.
Yeah.
You know, roll up, roll up, roll up. Lots of deals here. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Get manifesting those lottery numbers. Let's do it.
Okay. And I very rarely buy lottery tickets. Maybe once every 5 years I'll buy one. And then I think, oh, well, that was a waste of money. And I don't buy another one for another 5 years.
Yeah. Well, that's funny. It's like, oh, let's manifest lottery numbers. And it's like, Sean, you don't even play the lottery. So I have to start playing the lottery.
Yeah, and I went into the store the last time we bought one, and I thought, well, I don't know what to buy, what to do.
Yeah, I like what is it? There's a scratch card that I used to buy a lot. Was it the bingo one? No. Oh, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Oh, Cash for Life. That's it. And that's fun just because like I mean I've only ever won like at most, like $100 on it or something like that. Yeah. But it's fun because I could go like spend $21 and like that's like 7 cards and then just go weeks of just getting more cards just from my winnings, so yeah, so every couple of days you just get more cards, and then eventually it just ends up petering out where I get a batch where like there's $0 in winnings, so then I'll go like months without buying more. But it's fun. It's just fun just for a few minutes and just like, ooh, what if, But it's kind of like just like I said, like to go weeks and weeks and weeks of being able to buy more cards without putting out your own money. You can like these, $20 or $12 or whatever. So I'm like, oh, I'll just get more cards because I'm not going to cash in a card for $12.
Yeah.
Like, what's the point? Friend of mine used to work at the casino here, and she had a really good outlook on gambling. That I never really, because like she basically said like you can come in with $20, spend a couple of hours, and even if you leave with nothing, like where else can you go and spend 2-3 hours having fun for $20?
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, that's actually a really interesting way of thinking about it. Because I realize the name of the game with gambling is to win money and to come out, farther ahead than what you put into it. But just as a form of entertainment, I mean, you can't go to the movies nowadays for $20.
No.
But yeah, you can spend 2 or 3 hours gambling on $20 or 5 minutes. I mean, it's just really all minutes. But yeah, so that was an interesting way of looking at it that I never really considered. And I think that's a good way of thinking about it.
Yeah. Actually, the only gambling that I really enjoy is at the racetrack. And I figure, I can put down my, mini bet and just have fun watching the horses run.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, again, because I'm sure you don't have to place minimum bets, and you know what I mean? Like, it's not like you're like, oh, well, the least you can bet is $1,000.
Oh, no.
Yeah. So
yeah.
So you go, you have some fun, you watch the horses, and if it costs you a couple bucks, that's fine because again, technically it was a free event. It's not like you have to spend money to go into the racetrack. It's, spending money on the betting. So yeah, why not? Why not? You know, as long as you can keep it healthy and keep it in perspective and it doesn't lead to an addiction, you know. So why not? It just treat it as another form of entertainment. I mean, it'd be great to spend $20 at the casino and win some sort of jackpot grand. Of course, that'd be fantastic. But, you know, that's not going to be everyone's experience. So go have fun and, you know, when you're done, go home and, you know.
And you'll be hoarse from shouting. Come on.
Yeah. I need to pause for a second.
Okay.
And we're back. So before we wrap up, unless there's anything else that you want to talk about, there's two things that I want to ask you. The first is, because you're the first OBOD that I've had on the podcast that has completed the 3 grades, I want to ask you, like, to kind of say, like, why, you know, for someone that's interested in Druidry, considering Druidry, why they should look into OBOD, you know, a little bit about, you know, what going through the 3 grades was like, and, you know, kind of not like trying to do like an OBOD promo, but you know what I mean. And second thing that I want to know from you is, have you ever considered, or are you considering, or would you consider writing any books on Druidry, magic, Medicism, anything like that? So, yeah.
For the book question, I'd say no.
Okay.
It finds its way into what I write, but it's not, what I write is not specifically about that. I suppose you could say that young adult novel had a lot of Cometicism in it.
But would you never consider writing any books on Druidry or anything like that? I mean, because I think you'd be good at it. I mean, because number one, you're a good writer right off the top, but number two, like, just with your lived experience.
Yeah, I suppose I could at some point, but I have other ideas for my writing right now. One of them is actually a kind of a memoir that I'm writing.
Nice.
And so that's taking up a lot of time. And the next idea I have is for a play, another young audience play, which I have in my head. So I haven't considered doing any of that other stuff, but maybe at some point I will.
Yeah.
That's it. So as for Druidry and OBOD specifically, I think it's a great way to delve into who you truly are as a person, how you live in the world, how you interact with others. It just is I find it's a community, and it develops how each individual lives within that community. And it goes into some fairly deep psychological stuff when you're working through the meditations.
It sure does.
Yeah. And so I think it's a good thing to do, especially if you feel that, I suppose everybody's going along with their lives and they have their ups and downs, but I think that as a person, I have developed so much since I joined OBOD. Even since joining Fellowship of Isis, I made some changes there, and I made some deeper changes working with OBOD. And especially creatively, because creativity is valued so much in OBOD, and it joins you to the universe of creation, I think. Whatever that creation might be. It might be singing, it might be playing something, it might be embroidery, whatever. But just the fact that you can put your mind and your hands to doing this creative work, it's a real pleasure. And so that's the job of the Bardic course. The job of the Ovate course is working much more with the natural world and getting to know the natural world and appreciating the natural world. And you can, of course, appreciate it without doing an OBOD's course.
Of course.
But I think there's a deeper way you can get into it by doing the course. And the Druid course, it's a difficult, I never know how to describe it, actually. It's completely different from the others, but it is kind of a way to develop you as a leader, I would say. And working with community, but in a more leadership capacity and a celebrant capacity, perhaps.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, it's you say it's kind of difficult. You always have difficulties explaining the Druid grade. I think, you know, I always try to not make direct comparisons, but relating one thing to another. And the OBOD doesn't have like an outer order and an inner order where like you complete the 3 grades, you enter the inner order where there's different training and whatnot. I think the Druid grade would be the closest equivalent to being like in an inner order, and it's different. Like the tone is different, and whatnot. So yeah, it's hard because you see between the Bardic grade and the Obid grade, like they flow into each other really well, and then you have the Druid grade, which is not like an about face, but you know, in a way you're kind of like, oh, slam on the brakes because this is all different, and and I'm learning something like just completely new and completely different to what I've been doing for the past however many years it took me to get through the Bardic grade and the OBOD grade or whatnot. So yeah, it's not as easy to define, really.
No, it's not.
Yeah.
And of course, since my day, all 3 of those grades have been changed.
Right. Yeah.
But I think, you know, you still get basic information is similar. I think the way that it's laid out and the way you go through it is different. And I think it's better now, the new one.
Yeah. I've always had trouble, you know, people like, well, you know, and I have trouble more with people in the pagan community than the people outside the pagan community explaining Druidry, because when you explain Druidry to someone outside of the pagan community or magical community, you can say, I mean, technically you can say whatever you want because they're not going to know the difference. But when you have like a fellow neo-pagan that's more like on a Wicked inspired path, and they're like, well, there's not that much difference between this, you know, Wiccan inspired neo-paganism and Druidry, you know, reverence for nature, working with elements, blah 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 blah. You know, one is more lunar, one is more solar. But to be able to say, okay, well, Druidry is this, like trying to fit it into a box, a well-defined box, is really hard to do, especially like our type of Druidry, like OBOD's type of Druidry, because it's you get to shape a lot of it to your needs and your preferences. It's not like, you know, like ADF is a church, AODA is lodge style Druidry, where they're more they have more defined lines, you know what I mean? So yeah, it can be a little bit of a challenge to say, okay, well, it's different than what you're doing, as a, Wiccan inspired neo-pagan because your X and Druidry is Y,
Yeah. There's definitely a different approach. And part of that approach, I think, is the difference with working with magic. Whereas I'd say if you're into witchcraft, you'd work with magic a lot more. And you do work with magic as a druid, but the approach to it is different.
Yeah, and that's one thing like you don't find, like you can, go to your local bookstore and find any number of books on, like spells of books of spells, like witchcraft spells. You don't find that like a druid's book of spells, because just the approach to practical magic is quite different.
Yeah, and it's more, I think it comes more from inside rather than outside.
Yeah. I find I've never been really big on doing practical magic for myself. I find with my practicing my spirituality, having my daily practice and trying to have everything in balance as much as possible, I find that I kind of, it's like the universe is providing me everything that I need in the amounts that I need, so, I've never really been in a position where it's like, oh my God, I'm so broke, I need money, I got to do a money spell. Not like there's anything wrong with that. I'm not saying that there's, do practical magic, absolutely do practical magic. I find like I've never had to really focus my magic on practical magic. It's that's just me. That's just that's my outlook, because I've never really been in a position where no, I shouldn't say that, because never mind. I'm not gonna finish that thought. So anyway, so is there anything else you want to talk about?
Coming up, and I think it's September the 9th, anybody all over the world can tune into Playwrights Local Radio, which runs out of Cleveland, and I have a radio play that's going to be on, and it will be on the web, so you don't have to tune in on the 9th and it's gone. It will be up there, and it's called Love and Ecstasy.
Nice. Okay.
And I'm very proud of that play.
I used to travel with my father when he was a truck driver, and I would travel with him in the summer, and I have a fondness for radio. As a matter of fact, like I'll often have, I don't watch a lot of television, but I'll often have a program on television and specifically not watch it, just listen, to the sounds and the people talking, interacting, whatever, and imagining, letting my imagination fill in, like the visuals and everything, and just from, because you just spend hours listening to the radio, and like the radio plays and everything, and kind of miss that.
It's a great medium.
Because it's like, really, well, I guess you can say, I was going to say it's like reading a book, but we have audiobooks nowadays, so it's like audiobook in a sense, only with more speakers, because when you're reading a book, you have to imagine the scenario, how it would look. Same thing with an audiobook. So radio play is fairly similar.
It is similar. You can do more with sound effects with a radio play.
Yeah. And, audiobooks, it's not like each character, like there's a voice for each character. And you have, as great as that would be, but it's still different.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, that's exciting. Anything else?
That's about it for now.
Okay.
That's my next project coming up.
So let everyone listening, and I'll have all of these links in the show notes, but so everyone can just go to the show notes and click on them, but let everyone know where they can find you online and all of that good stuff.
Okay, on Twitter, I am at storytelling1, WAN, and that handle was because I wanted to write Wanderer, but it was too long, so I just had WAN. So it makes me sound as if I am one, but let's see what else. I have a website which is www.gailnyokastories.com. I'm also a member of Storytellers of Canada. And so if you look up their website, you can find me on that, and a member of the Playwrights Union of Canada. So I'm on their website, and a member of the Writers Union of Canada. So I'm on their website too, and I can get hired for things.
Awesome. Great. Fantastic. So everyone listening, if you have stories to tell, but you're shit at writing, Gail's your lady. So you just got to click on that link.
Yeah.
And hand over the big bucks.
Oh, yes, definitely.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you, Gail, so much for agreeing to come on. It was so nice. And I miss you so much.
Oh, I miss you too. And it was great fun chatting.
Yeah.
It was really good.
Yeah. We got to get over this pandemic so we can all get together. I mean, this is ridiculous. Like, this is just bullshit. Like, I need to be with my people.
Yeah. I've been planning to go to England for the past 2 years, and both years it's been cancelled. So we'll see.
Well, we had talk, Phil, Cindy, and I, of going to. God, when was it? Was it last year?
It was supposed to be 2020. The OBOD thing.
Yeah.
That's it. Yeah.
And so, that's out. That was out. So yeah, who knows? I think we're in this for a while. I do. I think we're in this for a while. So, it is what it is.
Yeah,
complaining about it.
Learn to work around it, I suppose.
Yeah. I mean, complaining about it isn't going to change it. So, what's the point of complaining about it? Yeah. Anyways, on that note, Gail, thank you so much. I love you so much. I miss you, and I hope you have a good day. And for the listeners, again, all of Gail's links are in the show notes. My link that gets you to all of my social media, website, YouTube channel, everything is in there as well. So click on that, follow me on Twitter and Instagram, and until next week with episode 24.
Okay. Bye, Sean.
Thank you for listening to this episode of The Lux Files. You'll find all the guest links in the show notes, as well as the link www.leilokanzalwin.com/links. That link will get you to my page of links, where you can then go to my Leilo Kanzalwin website, the Lux Files page, and my Leilo Kanzalwin YouTube channel that has all the Lux Files videos. It also has all my social media links there, so you can follow me and the Lux Files. And don't forget to subscribe to the Lux Files wherever you get your podcasts. And lastly, if you enjoyed this episode, please consider leaving me a review. Until next time.